Hello, everyone. I'm going to read some poems today. My name is Tony. Some old poems. Last time I was featured on the show, they were all new poems, and I wanted to do a bunch of some prose pieces that were kind of beboppy to some music that me and James have been playing around with, like last time. So how we'll start it off is I'll read a couple of poems, and then we'll bring in music into it, read a couple more without music, and then back into music. So I hope you all enjoy. This poem is called Suicide Angel. She died in his arms. He told us this as we painted the interior of a nearly finished 2-story house 2 feet too close to its neighbor. She was his first wife, and he was new to the crew of felon painters. We were finding freedom in brushstrokes. They gave him a hard time full of slow learning and lack of confidence. Prison terms tend to build disbelief in oneself and deconstruct the ability to acknowledge social cues. Even with the backdrop of low falling robe covering the base of the Calapooya Mountains and eastern peaks covered in snow sadness, solemn expressions were carried in the pelicans of paint, and rough talk was spit out to each other deemed as carpenter's talk, which appears to not have changed since post-depression morale. The new painter just couldn't find his grip on the handle, but he kept at the task at hand, following job site to job site. I don't know why, between the beautifully brotherly bonding between labor crews, there lies a need to attack the weak and make jokes dated back to pre-segregation days. Even with multiracial identities working under one roof, politics spill over, which no paint thinner can erase. Every time the new painter made a mistake, he told another sad story reflecting on how he arrived here. His last prison stint was because he failed to shoot himself in the face on his front yard. His frame too short and his arms too stubby to pull the trigger of a 12-gauge shotgun. His attempt to kill himself was not seen by the judge as a cry for help, but instead as a felon in possession of a firearm. We ate lunch on the back of the pickup in silence. When the fog dissipated and the valley grew warm, a statue of an angel across the yard revealed a stone hand with index finger and thumb pointing towards the face. The new painter leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Look, a suicide angel." Give me all the mics. This poem is The Dead Dosing the Dead, a methadone clinic experience. If anyone has ever experienced what it's like to be a patient at a methadone clinic, this might resonate with you. They all laugh hysterically at nothing absolute, blinded to even the relative. Thoughts that don't make sense beyond pattern or rhyme float like carbon monoxide. They remind me of Dogen's story of a conversation between a priest and monk, where the monk asked, "How do you think not thinking?" The priest simply replied, "Non-thinking." The clinic blankets this absence of thought and breeds modern pawns waiting for their government fix, stuck in the realm of hungry ghosts as war veterans on the battlefield. We gather in line, small talk, empty, hollowed shells, drooling words, forgetting human connection and linguistics, given a number as to our only identity. We try to make sense of existence while in attempt to escape the reason we are here. Surrounded by whitewashed walls and urine-stained corners, receptionists and nurses who got their certificates online, completely detached to their slowly dying patients, believing the plexiglass wall truly separates our suffering. The door buzzes. Everybody's blood ripens, muscles tense, eyes dilate, nerves tremor, a sign of relief to life behind the gate. Steadily, the government slaves who spent half their life in this line move forward, inch by inch, one by one, entering alone. Then the silence. Panic breaks out in an epidemic. Sweat rolls, anxiety flies, hands clam, motor functions break. We all want to die but are too afraid to do it ourselves. In the clinic, time rapidly forms osmosis, moving in a decelerated rate. The reality is it's only been 3 minutes single file, the dawn barely breaking and fading into obscurity. But eternity is felt waiting in military fashion. We all ask ourselves, why, oh why, don't I just go back to the slender, hollow injection? The government has perfected their American dream mind control in the form of methadone, allowing no tapering or freedom. Somewhere Ginsburg is shaking his head beneath the dirt, saying, I told you so. Wicked hands burned into corrupted strings attached to our broken hearts, unseen by those unemployed in politics. Our dosing transforms us into modern-day zombies, abusing the system by remaining the abused, trying to just get by, trying to get high but failing the attempted escape of the present, to rid all feeling and thoughts with a swig of cherry-flavored poison, feeding and feeding but never satisfied. We want the feeling back of flight, but it won't work. Wings clipped with the sign of a contract, and the sky is an illusion. The dead dosing the dead. Do one more and then jump in with some music. This is to Anthony Far Away. There is no escaping murder. Like anger is an action floating in the air without a host, waiting for cause and effect's perfect storm to meet. Anthony was a mass-produced product of his environment, riddled with Section 8 flats resting on prescription-filled slants. The American healthcare system failed his psychiatric needs every year. The seriousness of his diagnosis disposed of like a stolen piece still carrying a serial number, tossed from the hands of the negligent capitalist system, both tainted by the poisons the government allows to enter the street. The long, black, slender handle of a newly acquired shotgun held with overzealous hands, wanting to show off to build up his pride, which his country had broken. A twitch of the forefinger. The air cut with a jerking explosion, then silence as one body lay on the floor, the other trembling with fear. Life imprisonment for murdering his friend, and only now does he get the psychiatric help he needs, but it's far too late. Introduce America. Let's do some do you want the okay. America, when will you end the human war? Go fuck yourself with your atom bomb. I don't feel good, don't bother me. Allen Ginsberg. I used to pick up heroin from a Chinese poker player with an eye patch in Chinatown. I wish it were opium, but I'm not that romantic. Although 9 out of 10 times I describe myself as a hopeless dreamer on clinic scorecards found in methadone clinics and St. John hospital wards. The government doses the dead with a cherry-flavored concoction that only lasts 24 hours. Genius, diabolical. No wonder they have so much power. They say they don't want free health care, but secretly that's how they pay for their mind-controlled substances. We call it opiates. They call it regulation. We call it speed. They call it attention deficit disorder medication. We call it disassociation. They call it therapy. As long as they prescribe it, legality is an issue. This is America. The American poker den rests below ground level of a 3-story dragon temple off Grant Street. The 3rd floor holds a Chinese Buddhist altar my grandmother's friends would frequent because the monks spoke enough Japanese. This is how generations connect with one another. Obachamas, grandmothers, lighting incense and 3 prostrations, while grandsons shoot dice and points in cigar smoke basements. All my friends stuck on vinyl, skipping over record needles buried in sand. Displaced from wars which their country is to blame, but their parents' homeland are no longer the same. From a place within the place, but not of the place. My father's father never said he loved him. Deep Swedes covered in Icelandic winters. Either intimacy floats down the Missouri on a raft, or it's kept in a gun safe never to be opened. This is America. I found using someone else's identity in my youth much more rewarding because I was only mirroring the identity crisis of the country I was born into. John F. Kennedy was getting shot up by a physician named Dr. Feelgood with everything the next administration started a war over, and he had access to the big red button. Tell me something more polarizing, something more contradicting, something more American. Do you know Obama deported more people than Trump? Do you know why we have drone wars? Do you know why children in the Middle East are afraid when the sun is out? Because that's the easiest time for strikes to occur. Between 8,500 and 12,000 people have been murdered by drone attacks in Afghanistan, Pakistan, Somalia, and Yemen. 1,700 civilians, 400 children. You still salute your hand to the past president? Blue and red are just colors of the same wheel, spinning and spinning and spinning. War on poverty, war on drugs, war on each other, war on everyone. Did you know we have 800 bases in 70 countries? That's 770 more than second place. This is America. I hear fireworks everywhere I go. I hear sutras expounded on waves against rocks and desolate boat docks in my childhood in Monterey Bay. I hear my friends vanishing in solitary confinement. Ghosts of alcoholic writers who wanted nothing but solitude next to Bigsby Creek, wanted nothing but free love, wanted nothing but 2 ice cubes clanking in an old Victorian. They wanted the stream to purify their ears, but once you get to the level of stardom, nothing fixes that. Leonard Cohen escaped for 5 years on Mount Baldy to stare at a wall. When he returned to LA, his friends depleted his bank account. He had no hard feelings. Maybe there is such thing as purifying one's ears with the stream. Tell me something more American than a Canadian artist who sang Hallelujah, becoming a devout Zen Buddhist. This is America. When my mother moved to Georgia from Japan at the age of 12, the bus driver named her Chink and on nicer days Jap. She is in more debt than anyone I know. America at its finest. My father is mostly to blame for that one though. America at its finest. My mother believes in Obake spirits, forest walk healing, and aliens. There's a reason I feel within this world and out. I believe I read that in the Tao Te Ching. Or maybe it was Nick from The Great Gatsby who said it. Sometimes I walk between cities in my sleep. I try to beat the sunrise before I make it to the city limits. If I fail to order a cup of coffee and oatmeal at the closest diner, if I succeed, I'm not sure what I would do. It hasn't happened yet. This is America. I grew up playing with the kids of a family of artists, one Japanese, one German. One of their kids made fun of me because my father was white and theirs wasn't. They made fun of me because they thought me less authentic. I wish I knew what that meant. They made fun of me because deep down my mother was from the country they held an identity from, and their parents were merely products of country migrations. I never understood what the difference was, until I learned I was the only person whose mother was from another country, and their mothers only looked like her. Don't they know he who builds is he who is excluded? I've been reading up on such stories. I read once that Douglas firs communicate with each other underground by a root system. We call it mycorrhizae. The trees call it poetry. I like to think of the missing lyrics of a Guthrie's poem when I attend funerals. As I went walking, I saw a sign there, and on that sign it said no trespassing. But on the other side, it didn't say nothing. That side was made for you and me. This is America. I am as other as I am not other, and I am not other as I am other. I hold these close as prayer beads between my palms while in bow. Beautiful. I had Tenderloin Lullaby or Boxcar Mountain Noise.
Tenderloin Lullaby, that's the,
This one with it, yeah. That one?
yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. This is the sentimental. Should we do Boxcar after that? You want to do that one?
I think John should put the one box.
Yeah, we'll do that back to back.
Just improvising
Beautiful. Okay, we'll do that one. We'll do that one next. Great. Tenderloin Lullaby. I exited an old brothel hotel and entered cold, shuttered screams that ravaged through the carnival sideshow streets of the Tenderloin. I followed the howl echoed from rooftops to fire escapes, meant for the covered moon but bounced across guttered bodies. A realm of ghosts and demons came forth. Within the burnout junkie corners and dead body graffiti tags, I witnessed drunken stumblers fall on smashed bottles. The night led me to the corner of Larkin and Geary, where I once kissed a friend while she busked for money. I followed in the shadow of a John for his late night rendezvous with the beautiful soul of a man in a leopard skin dress, a printed pattern once filled with big city dreams of hope, but his spirit now broken as the streetlights that adorn the busy sidewalks. They disappeared in a basement cellar, and I never said goodbye. I welcomed the scent of an alleyway I once frequented, and an empty stoop still familiar perpetrated the stench of a failed attempt to save an overdose. I held a hand that lost color. The air pulsated with a finite grace and gritted drumbeat. I remembered why I left the city. I sat cross-legged in front of a chessboard twirling a tourniquet. The dirty syringe littered on the blood and shit-stained sidewalk describes the canvas best. Beautiful, y'all. That was awesome. So Boxcar Mountain Noise.
Train song. I was just trying to keep like a, well, I think you just see it there.
Yeah.
I was keeping like an ostinato thing going. Like,
You'll
catch the vibe of what lays on top of it.
Yeah, in those moments where I go kind of faster, like where parts like on the second page where it gets faster and slower and faster. Think of it as if you're hopping a train from Oklahoma to LA. All right. Boxcar Mountain Noise. The boxcar is full of noise, white and black owls hooing in the night. Midnight, almost here, dice being slammed. 15, 15. College yuppies talking loud, too loud for my ears. Flocks of good-looking gals of all ages. Golden blonde hair, big white eyes transparent to anyone different. Ignorance is not bliss, not in this case. Too many people boarded the desert. Out my window, there goes John Dillinger with the bride and fire of flames. The cowboy sits in quiet solace across the table, liquid toxicity and coffee grounds. Look into my pocket. New pair of seeing specs, great luck. Observing the crowd from afar, yet sitting a foot away. A ghost among the fog. The restless souls quivering in the heated square. The multiple train cars empty and hollow, yet full of life and stories towards the back. Jolie yells at 2 a.m., the captain wakes up, and a storm starts to brew. Where are we? Mexico, Texas, an observatory? Faster, faster, on down the track, folk songs fueling the fire in the bright, bright, bright lights of San Antonio. No entrance. Get kicked out of yet another bar. Get out of here, they yell. Looks like salt flat territory on ice-cold mountain tips with a mirage of cactus and hide. Rawhide. 30 minutes from Tucson, the people seem to thrive on going home. But who's home, huh? I wish I had one. My seat starts to melt away. A bird suddenly dashes away with food. The Mexican border is my leaning post. Fumes entangled in blue with gray clouds absorb my oxygen and roll my eyes back. A shadowed mirage in the distance suddenly appears. I don't care what's in that pipe you're smoking, kid, but don't do it here. They'll get you faster than a blink. Back on the train, boots laced, hat secured, mind open, all aboard. We leave El Paso in a tornado trail of tears, this time Buck, Texas. We break down first day's pass. Someone asks me, shall the fire warm the shelter? No sleep, no sleep. Drift off to a cloud of remorse that shadows in dusk. The night falls, and does it fall hard? The heavy, droopy crustacean awakens to slumber. Cold, breathless entities travel along the rusty-toothed boxcars, entering unknown paths that haven't been touched in decades. Whispering resources that have long been extinct get resurrected. To the bone, destination is lousy and fragile. The storm is above, hanging like bats on Bryant Street, 1,300 miles away from California. Travel higher than the storm. It follows as blissful despair, but the ocean awaits. Ginsberg yells at me as the track disappears into a Rocky Mountain tunnel about a scheduled war, but nobody showed up, and ecstasy bells are run by life. When the train whistle shatters my silence and Ginsberg vanishes into the helium chest. On and on and on, down the eternal infinite railroad vein, headed westbound, destination rail yard close to Union Station over the Rio Grande. Desert storm, center of the universe, and coyote eating cactus. Though the mountain range into arrives, and so the sun sparkles and shines an array of colors. Yellow, purple, and orange sounds fill the air, transcending into everywhere like the Buddha at the Bodhi tree. We are the west of the west, hypnotized by the movement of parallel smoke lines beaming through the dense dark pipe steam blowing from the train like an ancient dragon. The sun peaks overhead above the tip of the last mountain staring at eye level. I will kiss the ocean reflecting the shade of the moon at nightfall. My heart rushes between the melting boxcars and grainers, westbound and down off the platform. The last guitar string has snapped. The American dream sought and imagined. America fall. Rise, America, rise. Did a good groove there going. That was good. I think this would be a good one. Let's go to San Francisco Street Sutra. It's like after that one. Oh, maybe. This is gonna be page 31, 32. Maybe it's that. We didn't do this one.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Any suggestions there with the vibe?
Like April in Paris is coming to mind. Something of like that
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of
Romantic city vibe.
yeah,
right?
romantic city vibe and
With a tempo.
yeah, the tempo.
Yeah, Count Basie over there.
Mm-hmm. San Francisco Street Sutra. San Francisco, San Francisco. The Golden Gate Arch is a needle plunging into the wide flowing delta vein meeting the great Pacific Ocean, where troubadours and vagabonds painted the sidewalls of alleys with handstands and fire juggling. Lanterns were lit and temples erected from the grain-spotted soot-stained hands of the Eastern immigrant, who, with the other so-called trespassers of the true American dream searchers, scraped up in the hundreds of thousands to build the Western temples, only to be thrown in the pit of fire when all was complete. But history cannot be covered by dirt over a trench-dug grave, nor smoke and mirror parlor tricks invented atop Capitol Hill. Smoke will soon dissipate and all mirrors will eventually shatter. Walls that once housed the minds of the ravaging mad, stuck in a state of consciousness where a false self surfaces. Mind and body disassociated, and observation from out of skin took place. Those walls have been dismantled for economic purposes and patients thrown to the wolves, sent on buses to states that they'd never been before. Those who shift like chameleons and slither like snakes in three-piece suits, walking in circles fueled by cocaine and paper money while running into walls. Changing the subject when asked about the homeless situation, they have no answers and no solutions. Only misleading trails of dishonesty and shame. The more bodies dying on the roach-infested sidewalks cement on Christmas Day, the more money they can squeeze to build useless temporary waste bins. Oh, San Francisco, I hear the late-night scream of hunger. I hear the scream of pain and suffering. I hear the wailing baby left alone on the stoop. I hear the prejudiced remarks shouted at a person of color. I hear the sexist bigotry yelled at the woman walking to work. I hear the gasping of air of another lost soul overdosing on fentanyl mixed heroin in the squatter's den. I hear the early morning scream at the twilight hour atop Buena Vista Hill where a knife is plunged into the breastplate. I hear the silence of the innocent scream of rape. But the fire that raged after the 1901 earthquake did not burn the city to ash, nor did the earthquake in 1989 swallow her up. The riots, tear gas, smoke bombs, and rubber bullets only electrified hearts to beat faster, full of hope and inspiration. San Francisco, you still stand as a monument of diversity and example of cosmopolitanism. You may be on fire again, flames engulfing every quarter to gentrify what already covered in blood and sweat. But you will continue to rise well after and house the sick and tired, who are outcasted by the tight walls of conceptual living, breaking the barrier of the 21st century. Yeah, that felt really good. That was the first time any of us had read and played that together.
Yeah.
Those tend to always be just, I don't know, just so on the same key.
Great.
Face tattoo theory, Sutra?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, let me jump over for that. Well, yeah.
So for anyone out there watching this, if you are a socially awkward person and having kind of trouble with communicating with other human beings, I suggest you get a face tattoo. I have one myself, but I wouldn't say it. And this poem is about that. It's, yeah. The Face Tattoo Theory Sutra. I think every shy and socially awkward human being should get a face tattoo. It doesn't have to be a teardrop or a Mike Tyson half-face in-your-face shape. It could be whatever, big or small, but significant and meaningful. No matter what it is, it will be bombarded by strangers. The tapping of the shoulder from an unfamiliar face to ask or guess, usually completely off and dead wrong, but it will make them the centerpiece of a conversation they never wanted to be in or asked to be a part of. No longer can they slip through the aisleways of the shopping market unnoticed like a slithering chameleon hiding behind cereal boxes of Cocoa Puffs, or shielding their identity with pints of Ben & Jerry's. The once bank account visits with an unknown teller will be changed forever to be forced to explain the face art. For they will be asked, and they will shed, eventually their socially afraid existence and become thrusted into having face-to-face word exchanges and human contact. After some time, when every nook and cranny in their hometown is no longer a safe place to weave among camouflage, they will finally rest in self, comfortable in the skin around those too who have skin. They realize people are not scary and innately good. Their facing will show them that they too are good people with a story to tell. They are interesting human beings living on a weird planet during a strange time, and they too will be part of the strange.
Oh, yeah, I think we can do this.
You want to do this one and then...
Yeah, no, John. So we were playing it like it was a blues, and I was hitting a 4-chord on the second measure, and then just extending the blues in any way that felt appropriate. So it's kind of a slow blues.
Okay.
If you get the picture real fast.
You want to count it?
I went B flat.
Okay.
Now I think that Tony just arrived at the second measure with the second line,
Okay.
kind of good as blues, you know.
Got it.
This is a poem. This is a poem about my experience when I was 19, actively a heroin addict, living with 6 bartenders in a 6-bedroom house in downtown Sacramento. It was a madhouse. A junkie should never live with 6 bartenders. A junkie should never live with 6 bartenders. 200 plus pounds of pure late night drinking machines fresh off the Ford factory bar room. The bartender is rowdy and lives for the broken shot glass thrown at the wall during last call antics. The junkie wants the quiet, solemn periods of reflection, or the non-stick effect, whichever comes first. The bartender brings everybody from the bar after closing time to the house for the after party, keg in tow, confetti thrown with clammy hands. The junkie wants nothing to do with them, let alone people in general. He'd rather be comfortably numb in an old broken-in recliner with equally lazy cat in lap, reading avant-garde literature, cigarette made mostly of ash. If it weren't for the junkie would never get rest. But because of it, he is able to sleep through the bottom floor water hole gathering. They vibrate the entire 6-bedroom structure, amateur DJ hour for everyone. Katy Perry and Taylor Swift exploding through the busted speakers, leftover La Garnacha burritos and piles of nachos glued in every corner. But dairy is the junkie's enemy, as is the noise excluding in waves of pop star seizures. The morning race to the bathroom is the worst part of all. If the junkie doesn't win, he must wait for the puking to end and drooling faces to be spatulaed off the gangrene-encrusted toilet seat. Even if they pass out bear-hugging the white porcelain headrest, the risk of getting caught mid-shot in the bathroom is far too high. So the junkie takes care of the sick and plays sincere doctor, even if only for selfish reasons to satisfy his own cravings and sickness. He becomes the shadow savior, drinking water and holding hair back, flushing vomit, wiping stomach chunks and bile from blue and purple lips. Yes, a junkie should never live with 6 bartenders, but 6 bartenders should always live with the junkie. Ah, so good, beautiful. Let's do this prosy piece. If I were to squeeze on my, or if I were to sneeze on my morals.
Cool. I'm gonna run and check the sound on this one, make sure everything's balanced. I've got a feeling. Cool.
You can send this one out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just gonna check the sound, make sure it's
Perfect. Okay.
solid. I'm gonna turn the lights on.
This one, kind of very spontaneous. Very spontaneous. Think of like if you were to make automatic typing into automatic playing. Yes. Okay. If I were to sneeze on my morals and sleep on my ethical baggage, would you still love me? Smoke trails from my fingers, slender at the base of swollen hands, bruised and scarred from the concrete holes that are scattered throughout this city. The smoke hides what's really going on. Far right hiding in the shadows, the left somewhere next to them, and both masks are dimly lit in a corner, silhouetted by the cherry of a Marlboro. Broken in pieces while birds chirp overhead and the morning dew melts away into the gutters. I am slowly but nevertheless building some sort of immunity to political filters. Yellow and brown sticking with resin caked in the caves of young lungs, attempting to break in air to spit out nonsense. Pages ripped from material no one reads. A prison confinement so close that no one pays attention. Men rotting from the inside like some sort of carnival. I need to walk on water. I need to lay in the grass with Don Quixote and make a fire. A low fuel burning fire to not be seen. Low smoke but high in flames, keeping the warmth of the fire going. The mountain ranges east of the highway are laughing at the traffic below and telling jokes to people who are furiously fist-pounding their horns, while a man who fought for this country, but reasons he does not know why, kneels on a mat because the country he gave his decades of energy and time for doesn't acknowledge his existence. His car insurance company dropped him because he is homeless, and somehow that is normal. The mad ones are mad and insane because to be insane is to be of this country. Everything about the principles and fundamentals that keep this country afloat causes 4 walls of shells, concrete, wires, and shit to keep us in a box, powered by money. The transactions of floating green paper worth nothing in value except concepts. Well, the self is a concept, I suppose. We give that value too. What is to become of this large confinement that once was called Turtle Island? Fuck it. I shall call it Turtle Island, and I hope others do too. Yeah, that was good. Perfect. Ooh, let's do Spanish Moon. I'm thinking of miles in Spain. I brought it last time and we didn't get to it. Spanish moon. Spanish moon, high above the midnight train, nothing to lose, for everything is nothing. Where are you tonight, as dust settles on the outskirts of high-towered walls, church bells rung in rhythmic patterns, addressing the question of what is a sonnet? Poetry is this grounded city, made from Spanish blood-flowing veins. Flowers bloom between cracked stone penetrated by ancient hands rough from survival. Raised into the starry sky, rain petals picked by young children, playing in the sideways street at 2 a.m. There is no sleep, except for afternoon siesta, but dreaming is every moment. Eternal, shining light pierces like arrows. Spanish moon, revolving like the click-clack of Don Quixote's musket in high noon desert heat, surrounded by rolling hills and plateaus of green vegetated fields, gold unearthed as railroad tracks of 1,000 years ago. Ripe is the fruit that heals this land, soiled by flowing blood of religions, fighting for individual gods that they are blindly yelling at from the top of their lungs, screaming biased opinions of who's mightier, ignorant to the fact that they are all gods themselves. Wars blasted, wars savage, wars bemoaning, wars exploding. Death swiftly burns, melting flesh off the bone. Both sides waging hatred, philosophize in masqueraded obedience and conceited love. Trashing the pure sacred land of giant gods, devas, Buddhists, bodhisattvas, high priests, deities, and angels of life. The streets scream a blissful noise, ravaging mad, tearing through the conception of night, hobbling lopsided, jumping cobblestone to cobblestone, uneven, buried under, raised over, gardens of barefoot, trampling like iridescent feet atop grapes. The walls of the city bleed poetic sorrow and cry poetic joy. In the street, bazaars spring up in all corners blooming forth, as budding flowers exhaling the scent of gods into minds of the void. Artistic creation protects the hands that mold, grab, squeeze, point, chisel, stroke, but not enough to save the martyr. Marmalade flows in 2 beat upstroke, gently grazing piano keys, shuffling as late night gambling in Chinatown, blues guitar sliding and wailing, spontaneous prose at the tips, close enough to taste, far enough to hurt the sensitive. Absorbing the energy of passers-by walking upside down across the Plaza de Mayor. Flocks of cubist portraits melt into surrealist perceptions, laughing at the romantic believers, lying in the park, gazing into the eye of the sun, breaking bread on the bank of El Llobregat, and dunking new bodies in the Mediterranean. Dreams floating above high cathedral gargoyles, plotting the next chapter of the American traveler's novel written in stone, crying out into spilled ink, crying out into lovers' hands held at dawn, crying out into the void where anything is possible. The clouds run like paint, mixing onto palettes of leathered skin. New colors 1,000 years ago entered canvases made from tears, blinding the shelving unit we all fill with nonsense and preconceived judgments. Ring, ring, bang, bang. The hour is upon the city of vantage points, lights flickering where nothing was before. Never resting, the Spanish twilight shades the surface like ancient oak barrels, producing unconditional love and bearing fruit for the traveling heart, all beneath the Spanish moon. That was, So that's like that same energy onto Poem for Jean Cocteau. Kind of similar. Very similar. Yeah. This is a love poem for Jean Cocteau. No one has heard of Jean Cocteau. highly suggest you read some of his work, some of his poetry. He's an amazing artist. Turn of the century, he helped get John Genet out of prison for a life sentence in the late 40s. Amazing artist. So this is a poem for Jean Cocteau. Glowing light as explosions entered the emptiness of space. Self-awareness disappears as rain showers in the heat of summer's equinox. Showering love. Language defeats the shaking hand as delirium tremens soon fade into obscurity. Drifting as secret messages along the empty canal, winding through back alleyways, up a step, look right, down a step, look left, gaze forward into the piercing light, gaze upwards and see the universal headspace of all rebellions, liberation and anarchism side by side, pouring the content of the inflated into coffee cups filled with curious wonder and foreign diagrams. Abandoned at the platform with luggage slowly sinking into the deserted rails, gravity holds us in place as we traverse the area of the map. Trumpets sounding off, horns of angels carried with doves, two pieces, one with vocal cords built by Edith Piaf's pain, and second with piano sat at by Stravinsky's disintegrating blind-eyed lovers with notes from the glow of the Parisian eclipse. We, a part of the underground society, flying through the underground tunnels, completed cities beneath sweaty, fiery passion, entangled among oblivious smiles, cheaply made but marketed with fancy font. Jean Cocteau, I smell your pipe smoke bursting of opium, bursting of paint lent by Picasso studio, breaking glass of high-rise balconies, silent in nature, but in the revolution barreling as steam locomotives colliding between two neighboring countries struggling to find common ground. I walk your gardens, smell your roses, dance in your streets, draw from your fountain of elixir to motivate my equilibrium from failing. I dream visions of your extravagant parties, Hemingway wrestling his self-consciousness, Fitzgerald convincing Zelda to back away from the ledge, Colette sitting in the corner, surrounded by an entourage of cats, drinking the finest liquor with 10-foot cigarettes and 10-pound jewels. Dali walking on his hands, staring into a mirror cracked from the ingenuity of avant-garde thoughts, and Brayton, never conforming to those who treason. I adorn the masks of your characters, building stage lights of your theaters, dancing with my love upon the balcony you poured wine from into the mouth of Jean Marais, drowning the city with the wisdom of life that only comes every 10,000 years. I read the poetry of Jean Genet and see your words between the lines, helping to pardon the empathetic thief who uses words to convey the broken spirited. I pose in three-dimensional structures of casted metal, dark round eyes swallowing the gaze as holes in space. Chisel Rodin garden creations, telling historical stories only those lost in time can comprehend. A wild carnival where psychologists theorize what they wish to philosophize. There is no answer to this question that haunts their existence. There is no solving this puzzle. There's no single symbol to decipher. You knew everything was a symbol. Everything means more than a quick glance, but once stared at, there's no meaning left. The feeling of finding a new world, a new planet, a new color, a new genius, a new meditative consciousness. They say no one sleeps, but I slap the midday coffee to the ground with passionate disagreement, like Ginsberg on trial for obscenity. Everyone is sleeping, because everyone is in dream. The bubble of what was, what could be, and what is. A new home can be found, but only temporarily. Art is only temporarily mastered until a new school of thought. All one can do is lay on one's backside, comfortably straight on a bed of grass, nestled between dandelions and rhododendrons, softly gazing the gondola rowing group of clouds overhead, creating shapes of objects used for Rorschach manipulation, until one cloud derails into perception and the universe makes sense. just curious.
7:45.
Oh, perfect, man. This is like beautiful.
John and I could always play around midnight at the end.
Around 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Midnight somewhere.
Ooh, how about we use that for this New York Dream 3321? Something similar.
Sounds good.
Yeah, okay. Sometimes you have dreams and sometimes you have poems. New York Dream number 3321. I woke up in a city that was a dream of that city. The West Coast burning, engulfed in flames, signaling smoke from Turtle Island up into the purity above the clouds. The East Coast was experiencing Appalachian autumn, leaves gently kissing cobblestone, trees naked, scarves wrapped, 2 pairs of socks, boots tied tight, the place of Renaissance, the place of midnight trumpet howling moonlight blue note symphonies, wailing, echoing, from microphone stands to soap boxes to graffiti tagged subway cars to dealer hangout alleyways to flattened cardboard boxes laid as meditation cushions for the homeless. This place was alive, pulsating, vibrating, electrifying, dying to keep momentum. An American Paris, but not Paris, and maybe not even America. I rolled a cigarette at McDougal, not only for me, but 50 cold hands. When they left, I blew smoke upwards, into the fire escape staircases, metal beam platforms like freight train platforms, where I once stood barreling across the Midwest beauty of my younger years, like Woody, like Joe Cotton, like Janae, like Kerouac. Yes, Kerouac. His ghost was hovering just above the fire escape I stood under. We both smoking, we both thinking, we both lost in the web of Indra. He never looked down, only across the horizon line of Greenwich. Somewhere beyond kept him preoccupied, kept him sad. I felt his sadness. So overwhelmed, my coat buttoned itself and I stuck out my thumb for no apparent reason and kept walking through the lyrics of Dylan's Hard Times in New York Town. As I passed by the forgotten many, the panhandling, trash digging, shoeless, ripped cloth covering and sad-eyed and cold-handed. Everywhere in this country getting worse and worse. I pulled around a corner, harmonica on my neck blowing as if to survive. One note like a train whistle, and as if unlocking a magical lamp, Ginsberg stood to my left, Dylan to my right, I invisible in the middle between a deep conversation, but not a conversation, because only Ginsberg spoke, and Dylan, hands in back pockets, stayed silent, just listening. Just as Dylan was about to speak, I fell into a manhole and landed on subway car number 6, empty. Lights flickering, metal clunking, sparks flying, then darkness. Silence slipped in like a shot of morphine. A saxophone accompanied by a B-flat trumpet. Notes carrying my high underground. An external rise suddenly ending. The corner of the shadow I stood lifted in the melody. I couldn't see, but knew. The bird and Prince of Darkness were traveling again. They pawned their brass, but for this time a ticket instead of a bag. And I entered a doorway to somewhere and found myself adjusting to the neon light above ground, alone in the street, but a voice familiar rang from inside the tavern before me. Dylan Thomas, pint in hand, was yelling about a war, and I knew I found my destination. Oh man, that was wonderful.
Nice, sounds good.
Yeah,
Singing.
I'm just super grateful to have you two accompany me on this. This is like
Oh,
super
Ronnie,
awesome.
man, yeah. Feel the same way.
Yeah, let's do Millennial Experience.
Cool.
Thinking something to this is another kind of similar vein as the last two, like the New York Dream 3321. We haven't done this one.
Cool.
Yeah, this is another one that we. So again, everyone who's watching, 99% of these we are all just doing on the spot. So it's pretty amazing how these great musicians can just kind of follow along when I just read. I feel like I don't have to do nothing except read.
Oh man, and write everything.
Well, yeah.
That's a little work done.
But man, we're like really. I feel just we're just on this same trajectory. We're We're on this caboose back on the grainer. So with this, let's kind of take it back to sentimental mood, something similar to that. Yeah, something like that. A millennial experience. He enters the auditorium, and no one noticed the lone stage light illuminating his presence. All alone in the fish tank with a school full of ideas, they come and go like birds scavenging for seed thrown by the old man standing half nude on the second-story balcony. He appears ravaging mad to those grasping dissertations, but he's the scholar and gentleman. He's the real Aristotle, paying only attention to himself and his birds, but the community gathering would have his head. Can't speak words to yourself. Wonderful, chanting words from the Maha Mudra, let alone answering yourself and smiling to strangers. The uniformed badgers will most likely shoot you, lie about it, even with live video, all the while pickpocketing you at the next town hall meeting, where the growth is stunted of those unsheltered from the oncoming storm, hidden beneath ragtag blankets, occupying overpasses and abandoned art space warehouses, where they are not welcome, though they are the true inspirations for heartfelt collages and factory-sized murals those artists rely on and wring dry as their muses, which are now the cracked hands and leathered-faced goblins, not the beautifully broken damsel runaways from home to the city. That's washed up and not real. That ain't real, and they know it so. They toss them out like Edie Sedgwick and leech onto the broken mother with a broken spirit and 5 kids, just like the one photographed in the 30s in a Southern California desert jungle encampment, who had no idea her face represented the country in which failed her. It is her descendants, though, that carry broken down street signs held in confused hands with words written in all caps demanding to not be deported to a country they've never seen before. A name in the system don't mean nothing if the system is broken and just a figment of Tycoon Baron's imagination, favored for him and his blood-dripping bank account. Those gentle, lost hands have splintered signs, pornographic images of banks and GMO companies, banks that are not welcomed in, and companies with toxic food they can't even afford, even if they wanted to. Hire the class clown or circus junkie, but they've tried every decade, but failed 9 out of 10. They have failed. They talk about changing the world, but once they leave the crowd, they do nothing. Their righteous fight for the worldly and humane causes are only passionately fought for when people are looking. Meanwhile, there are still 100,000 homeless men, women, and children in every city, but those competitive meditators only speak about the problem in an intellectual way, to try and argue. Argue for what? It never does any good. It only harms. Everyone is a hypocrite, and they'd rather look good with their stylish hair and rolled up pants and shiny boots and dangly tees and flashy tattoos, which are only armor and external distraction from the internal struggle. When I was lost in the desert, my Earth House host, he told me his government would not allow him to collect rainwater. In debt with fines, he caravanned to the desert, wife and baby in tow, searching for the American dream, which I thought was lost long, long ago, but it never went anywhere. The group conscious changed, but the individual perception created a unique American dream fit for the mind thinking it. You can choose to think the boxcar is moving too fast to catch, or choose to accept it as a challenge to take you out of the misery and despair and escort you, streaming steam and loud harmonic caboose whistles included, to a land where the great giants go, where Guthrie claimed the land was for you and me and everyone in between, where those who have long forgot self, a made-up picture of a false idea that can never be controlled or manipulated because always in motion, and shape-shifting like the boxcar used to transport your imagination into an enlightened state of being, floating in an empty space full of every single thing. We have one left. Arena Cage.
How are we?
We did do this, but I mean, I'm cool with the walking over dead bodies and pretending they're dead. That one.
Oh, yeah. just like kind of in tempo with the walking ballad.
Mhm.
Maybe let's think of it in B flat at the beginning, let's start in B flat and just,
What?
like, almost like a key center, we could just do like B flat at the beginning, almost like we're playing a tune.
Think of Johnny Marr playing with Morrissey.
Well,
Are we in a cage? Are we in a cage? Are those in cages in a cage? Are those in a cage within a cage in a cage? Are we criminals at birth? Inherited in a culture of language? Words for however tens of thousands of years used to separate boxes that take shape and form and reveal our awareness of surroundings have divided us. It has given a name to color which is only light reflection. Snakes see infrared, spiders see ultraviolet. Empty are words that label the moon different than the sun. The sun absorbed in our empty form keeps our motion attached to time limitless. But how has time been taught to you? Does the moon not guide us when shadows engulf everything we hold sacred? Is this not the same? Life isn't permanent. Let's not fool ourselves any different. So many advances through the centuries, and we still walk over breathing bodies pretending they are dead. To feel better, to feel something, to forget we aren't different, to tell us our dreams are different, to hide in this form we believe to be tangible, to place ourselves in our own solitary box. But tangibility is the consistence of matter, and matter is anything taking up space. Then tell me, why are we blind to matter? Currency and paper, oil, data, these determine our matter. Water is poison in our most vulnerable neighborhoods. Governments supply intoxicants only to give out life sentences for those not on the payroll. Countries supplied with machines built to take life will never be supplied with machines to give life. Institutions built to keep money will do just that, then get bailed out by something that doesn't exist. Institutions built to teach will only be operated by those who will never know what it means to be unable to buy their way out of a disaster. The poor will keep having revolutions, and the rich will keep giving restitutions. The land which gives us life will soon be underwater, taking that life because we are too slow at growing gills. We are too preoccupied on control and power to adapt to the next disaster. And at the same time, we are too poor to buy ourselves out of it. The bird in the cage remains in the cage. Outside of that is just another cage, and another, and another. Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, all my poems are on the ground.
Yeah, Tony, bravo.
And so thank you, everybody. James, John.
Thank you, audience.
Yes,
Oh, yeah, Tony, thank you for being here.
thank you.
Thank you so much. That's Tony Wallin-Sato, and so thrilled to have him on the show, and really great to back you up, Tony. Thank you, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the music and the poetry, and stay tuned for more. Thank you. Not tonight, but every weeknight. Thank you.